All right, welcome everyone. I am Blake from Bourbonr. This is going to be the first episode or broadcast, not sure what I'm going to call it yet, of Bourbonr Live. Make a couple adjustments really quick. On my microphone, because we do have, okay, that should be a little bit better. We do have pumpkin pie being made in the background, so if you hear clanking around, just ignore it. It's the night before Thanksgiving. But if you saw the email, so basically I'm going to try to do this on a weekly, maybe bi-weekly basis where just come on the live, do a few tastings, maybe bring some other guests on, discuss some topics, really just focus it on the community, try to, get some discussions going, kind of be an in-between with the Friday wrap-up. Maybe we'll hit some things that some of the articles popped up in the previous Friday. And so if you're not on the Bourbonr email list, make sure you join that because, every Friday I send out a list of 4 to 5 different articles from around the bourbon world. So we'll definitely discuss those, just other things that are happening in whiskey. And these are a whole lot easier to do than blog posts. So that it's also slightly selfish of me to do video as well. Just makes it a little bit easier. So already up to, let's see, we got 22 people on. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I know it's Wednesday and holiday tomorrow. So some people may not want to sit around for an hour listening to a random bourbon blogger talk about whiskey. But so for 3 whiskeys I'm going to try tonight, I put out that it was going to be Ghost Hill, which is from Treaty Oak, then Chicken Cock Whiskey, their 10-year bourbon, and then it was going to be Four Roses Small Batch Limited Edition, but I can't find that sample. So it's around here somewhere, but we recently moved, so I couldn't track it down. So I have 2 other options. I have the Old Fitzgerald Bottled in Bond, or this is the newest release, the that just came out, not the first release, and then the Parker's Heritage from 2018, which is the Curacao finished bourbon. So I'll probably knock both of those out. And try to work in the Four Roses small batch a little bit later. So let's go ahead and get started. So on to the first sample, which is this is Treaty Oak Distilling Ghost Hill Texas Bourbon. So Treaty Oak, they've been around for, I want to say like 6 or 8 years, but then they were sourcing a lot of bourbon. They called it their red-handed bourbon, and then they had a red-handed rye as well, which was a sourced rye. And this will be, the Ghost Hill will be the first release of their own distillate. So it's about 4 years old. It is, let's see, the mash bill on it is 53% corn. It's Texas corn, 36% Texas wheat, and 11% barley. So the barley is not from Texas, but everything else is. Aged in 53-gallon barrels. Everything's made in Dripping Springs, Texas, which is just outside of Austin, I believe. So this was an interesting one. I talked to the distiller about it a little bit, and just if you're familiar with other Texas bourbon and whiskeys, they often just come across as hot and over oaked and a little too spicy. And so he really tried to combat that in the mash bill. So he said we didn't use any rye, we used a lot of wheat, and a little bit heavier on the barley as well than some other bourbons. A lot of other bourbons that may just be in that 5% mash bill for the barley, but they went heavy with 11%. So it's interesting to see how some of these craft guys, they're not in Kentucky, they have different elements to compete with, so they try to just adjust different things in the formula. So he said they went with a sweeter bourbon up front, knowing that, just sitting in the heat of Texas in barrels, that they were going to pull off a lot of spice, a lot of oak, a lot of dryness. So hopefully they get some balance out of it. So this is my, I believe this is my first time trying this. If I tried it before, it was just briefly. So going to go ahead and dive in and to the first review, which is, if you're just joining, it's the Ghost Hill Texas bourbon from Treaty Oak Distilling. Which immediately on the nose, it's grain forward. not too much heat. It is a sweetness. It's more of like an oatiness, like oatmeal, brown sugar, cinnamon. There is a little bit of the oak, but you know, with a lot of these things, you're expecting something, and then when you don't get it, it's like you're searching for it. So I kind of have to search for it on this one. MSRP on this one is oh shoot, I think it's like $45. It was pretty reasonable. $49 is MSRP on this one. This is actually pretty nice. It's mellow. There's sweetness, a little bit of spice, but not a whole lot. A little more of kind of just like a black pepper, not the spice you get from rye, which is more of, that wintergreen and mint, that kind of stuff. Little bit of black pepper, a little bit of the oak. That's definitely coming through, but a nice sweetness. It's not like it's young at all. Gets a little bit, I'm getting a little bit of tannins. So with the tannins, I think of a few flavor notes when I'm thinking of tannins, but a lot of leather, that kind of stuff. I don't get that. It's just a little drier than some of the other stuff. So we're still on this is still the Treaty Oak Ghost Hill Texas bourbon. A little more fruitiness comes out with some water. Not a whole lot of floral notes, but just more on that grainy, sweet, a little bit of spice, maybe a little nutmeg, a little black pepper, cinnamon. But all in all, for $50, that's a really good release from a craft distillery. Actually, it's always great to see, and most of you probably know by now that I have the craft distilling retail site called Sealbox, and it's good to see bourbons and whiskeys coming out where it's not like, well, yeah, it's pretty good for a craft whiskey. And this is one I feel like you could throw in any other lineup and people would really enjoy it. So pretty well done. All right. Get my pour glass, get a quick rinse. And that's what the plan here is, to, go through these tastings and reviews a little bit quicker than I normally would, but then kind of jump into the discussion topics. So I put them at the top of the comments. So if you want to ask any more questions about those, feel free. All right, on to the next one. This is Chicken Cock Whiskey, the double barrel bourbon, aged 10 years, 104 proof. This is batch number 3 of 6. And actually, while I'm pouring this, somebody put a pretty interesting question, which I don't think I've really seen answered by anyone else. So go ahead and address it here, which is, how do you get the samples from distilleries? And I know it's, a question I always get anytime there's like a antique collection sample or anything like that. So the answer is, it's just a mix of issues. Over the last 5 years I've been doing this, sometimes they reach out to you because they see the blog or the Facebook group or Instagram or whatever. Sometimes, in the beginning, I would reach out to people and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm interested in reviewing. That's not typically the case anymore, just because, samples start to come in after a while. But, then you get the distillery who says, yeah, everyone with an Instagram account will hit us up for samples. So, I guess it's just all about building a following, building a community, and usually the samples come from there. I don't love taking the samples because I feel like even if I am trying to be unbiased, there is just a little bit of whether it's a conscious decision or an unconscious decision to, I don't know, maybe go easier on a sample. I feel like I've given plenty of free samples, bad reviews, so not always the case, but when in doubt, I usually will take a sample if it's something I can't get. And being in Florida, we're always late to the train on a lot of these releases. So if I want to get a review up and it actually, maybe help someone, the sample is usually the only option. So that's just one that I thought was an interesting question that I haven't seen addressed anywhere else. So on to this one. So it's 10 years old. It is MGP bourbon, which you don't see a lot of MGP bourbon in the 10-year range anymore. A lot of it has just dried up. I've talked to some like independent bottlers and that kind of thing, and the only thing they're getting offered is new make 2-year-old bourbon, that kind of stuff. Nothing in with some real age on it. Yeah, so the nose on this one, it's pretty common bourbon notes. It's there's vanilla, a little bit of golden raisin, some spice, more like a red hot candy. But the taste is actually pretty good. The taste lingers on, and he's in the chatter, I think still in here, but I'll give Ed Bly credit for this, where he talks about the witch's hat. What does it do in your mouth? Does it peak? Does it fall off? And kind of what you're looking for here is, in this one, it comes in with a little bit of the sweetness. You get that good spice, that spike in the spice. There's a little bit of dryness coming down off the finish, but it hits actually really nice. Yeah. So here's another thing is, you review some of these, and I'm reviewing it because I get this sample, but then the retail price is, hold on, let me check. I believe it's $250. And it's hard, it's hard to really get behind a $250 whiskey. Let's see. So there's only 1,980 bottles. It is the 21% rye mash bill from MGP, and it's 10 years old. Only 12 bottles that they selected for this. So, yes, they did advertise it as MGP. So they were pretty clear about that. And I believe they're working out of Bardstown Bourbon Company now, because Chicken Cock is just it's a brand that they resurrected from, I think it was like over 130 years old or something like that. So they resurrected the brand, brought it back, and it's a really cool bottle. So I'm sure you've probably seen it on the shelves, or seen it in pictures on Facebook or Instagram or something, where it looks like an old timey bottle. They really captured that with the old brand feel. I actually saw it on a shelf one time, and I'm like, is this a really old bottle, or is this something new that I didn't know about? And it turns out it was just a re-release. But it's it's got a nice balance of spice, age from the oak, a little bit of leather. If you like, I'm trying to get something that I could compare it to. It reminds me a lot of like the really good selections of some of the Smooth Ambler Old Scout stuff, where it's just a good, well-balanced whiskey. So all that to say, and this is where I go back and forth on, should I score it? Should I give ABC, all that kind of stuff? And basically what I've decided is, everyone's taste is so different. It's hard for me to say, yes, this is a good whiskey, you should drink it, because your taste is not my taste. I don't think I have the best taste, but I think I can pinpoint certain flavor profiles. So that's the goal of mine, is to pinpoint flavor profiles, give a general idea of what I think, and just kind of leave it at that. Ultimately, I can't tell anybody to go spend $250. But I don't think you'd be disappointed with this one. I know I've had some in the past where it's like, no way you want to spend anything over about $50 on this. But we'll get into that topic. That kind of is a teaser for the discussion for a little bit later. All right. And we're already at 17 minutes. So actually, I'm going to jump into the, I think I'm only going to do one of the Heaven Hill samples. So if you had to vote in the comments, do you want to see the Curacao barrel finish, the Parker's Heritage, or the Old Fitzgerald bottled in bond? Maybe the first 2 or 3 people to respond is the sample I'll pick. Let's see. Yeah, Chris Haynes says Chuck. That doesn't help. So in that case, I'm probably just going to go with Parker's Heritage. So this is one I haven't really gotten to. So I'm kind of curious myself. Oh, man. Okay, never mind. All right, 5 votes for Old Fitz right away. Okay, 6. All right, I'll change it up. So this is going to be the Old Fitzgerald bottled in bond, the fall 2018 edition. So it's 9 years, a wheated bourbon, distilled fall 2008. And then it comes in a beautiful decanter bottle. So if you haven't seen the bottle, I'd probably, if it didn't get me banned out of every bourbon group in Facebook, I'd probably try to buy an empty one just because they look so nice. But so this one is, I'm curious to see, because on the first one, I didn't think it was very good at all. I didn't think it was better than the $35 bottle of Larceny that Heaven Hill puts out. But if you're unfamiliar, Heaven Hill, huge, second largest bourbon distillery in the world, which in America, because bourbon can only be made here, but second largest bourbon distillery, and they have the Old Fitzgerald brand, which used to be at the Stitzel-Weller distillery, this whole heritage behind it. But they recreated some of these old decanter looking bottles for this release. It's really one of the best looking packages I've seen in the bourbon world in a while. So so let's take a sip. So already this is better than the first release. The first release was extremely astringent to me. It it almost had like a paint thinner characteristic to it. So this is sweet. It's mellow. It's a little more melon. It's a little more like ripe cherries. A little bit of the graininess from the corn. It's pretty nice nose though, and I'm kind of had to give my son a breathing treatment. So I'm like, is my nostrils numb by the albuterol, or am I just smelling what I think I am? So the mouth feels really nice. It has a syrupiness to it, which I don't think you always get with something of that proof. It is 100 proof. It's bottled in bond, but it has a nice mouthfeel. It's a little grainy, and I almost get like this, which I get this note from Beam, but almost like a wet cardboard, maybe a little bit of a peanutty taste. Yeah, there's some more fruit, a little more spice on the back end, a little bit of black pepper. The finish is nice. It's almost like it starts out well, but it kind of goes into this weird funky graininess and kind of midway through the palate, which I don't personally love, but kind of back to the original point of me just giving flavor notes isn't always or me just giving a score isn't always as beneficial, or doesn't help out as much as just giving flavor notes and kind of giving a general observation on the whiskey. So with this one, I definitely like it better than the first release, but I don't know. It's a little bland to me. Yeah, not bad, but all right. So now on to the discussion portion of the first Bourbonr live show broadcast, whatever you want to call it. So the first question is high proof bourbons are overpriced compared to their lower proof brothers. So this stems from an article by Wade Woodard on Tater Talk, where he compares he compares a barrel proof or a full proof in some of these cases bourbon compared to their proof down version, and he does it all by price. So go to it's tater-talk.com if you want to see the actual chart, but he goes through a whole list. And what's interesting about this is because I feel like everyone pushed so hard for barrel proof and cask strength and higher proof, and heaven forbid anyone release anything under 100 proof, because that's watered down garbage. And the thing is, distilleries they bite onto that, and what we see is a lot of times just because it's higher proof doesn't mean it's better. Originally, when they were doing these cask strengths and smaller releases, you'd probably get a lot of these honey barrels. But with this, I don't know if that's what you're getting. So I'll just kind of run you through a couple of these. 1792, the full proof version's $40 at 125 proof. The small batch version is 93.7 proof and is $24. So he's got a calculation, but basically you're paying a premium of 25% based on the higher proof. That's, I'm okay with that. Granted, I've had some pretty good foolproof bottles. I've had some that I didn't love, but then you go to something like an Angel's Envy. Once a year, Angel's Envy releases their cask strength version. So it's 124 proof at $189, whereas just the average everyday Angel's Envy bourbon is 86.6 proof, and it's only $45. So with that, you're paying a premium of 295%. So it's interesting to see, and I've never really thought about it like this of, am I just paying a whole lot more for a few extra percentage points? And the thinking is always, hey, I want it at barrel proof because then I can proof it down to whatever I want. It's if I wanted it 80 proof, I can add water. But, you're kind of paying a lot more in some of these examples than you would need to just by getting we'll take a look at the E.H. Taylor. So E.H. Taylor barrel proof, about 134 proof, depending on the release. He has it at $78. I haven't seen it for under 100 in quite some time. And then you have the E.H. Taylor small batch, which is 100 proof at $35. With that, you're paying a premium of 66%. And that one kind of sticks out because the age ranges are probably somewhat similar. 100 proof should be plenty to, kind of pack the punch. But, we just, more is always better in a lot of these cases. It's like, is it more expensive? Is it higher proof? Is it higher in age? If so, it's got to taste better. And I think that thinking can be misleading because distilleries just jump on that and then they just, put a bunch of barrels that have no business being barrel proof or no business being released if they're super old. But they just get put out because people are buying it and that's what they want. But yeah, somebody mentioned the NCF, NCF, which is non-chill filtered, is that's become a really big buzz, hype word, whatever you want to call it. And does it really improve it? Yeah, I think it improves it a little bit. And the reason they do chill filter is so everything stays looking nice and clean on the shelf. Where if if it gets too cold, it could fog up. You could get little specks in there. Or if people add ice, it fogs up and it's like, what's going on here? So, but yeah, I don't think it plays as big of a role as people think it does. So yeah, that's it on that. Let me scroll through the comments. How many bourbons truly? Yeah, and Matt says how many bourbons truly carry a high proof well? And Stag, there are some others. I would probably put Elijah Craig Barrel Proof into that category as of now, just because they're releasing it consistently. Pretty high volume. H. Taylor Barrel Proof. The Four Roses, really their limited editions are the only one, but their private picks are in pretty good quantity as well. And then let's see who else. Beam Booker's, that would be a big one, but it comes at a premium. So everyone kind of has their 1 to 2 that they put out. Whereas I think Booker's does a pretty good job of kind of segregating it from everyone else. But that's for another post. So on to the next one. So the next question or topic was, what makes a bourbon worth more than $80? And this is a great one because it's really simple. I don't know. Should an older bourbon, I would say if it's older, yeah, you've got some more time, more cost in there. It should be worth a little bit more, but I don't know. We tasted the Chicken Cock tonight. It's a 10-year-old cask strength bourbon, and it's $250. And then, you think about something like an Eagle Rare, it's at 90 proof or I think 90, 93 proof, something like that. And it's $30. You look at Michter's 10-year, it's 10 years old and it's 93, something like that proof. And it's $150. So what makes it more? Supply and demand. There's no real formula. It seems like even the big distilleries are catching on with like Elijah Craig 18-year, 5-6 years ago, it was $40. It goes away. It comes back at $100 and something, $120. So what really drives the price is just what people will pay at the end of the day. This is market, this is business for these distilleries. While they have the customer in mind, they also have shareholders, they have investors, they have employees, they have all this stuff that they have to take into place. So there's not really a true formula. It says, okay, if it's X and Y and Z, it should cost $100. Or if it's 6 years old, look at a Peerless. Peerless is selling 2 to 3 year old rye for $120, I believe it is now. Now it's barrel proof. It tastes good. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that that's $120 and then you can go pick up Sazerac rye that's 6 years old for $30. Or even, if you can find it, Thomas Handy, which is a 6-year-old barrel proof rye for $80. So that's the interesting part, is to see how consumers will react. And ultimately, distilleries are looking at customers. What are they buying? What are they talking about? And all that kind of stuff. I was talking with someone from Beam, and they were saying, we try to price things at what we believe they're worth. And it kind of, my question was like, well, but how do you get to that point? And it's, based on taste, based on, how old it is, based on how unique it is, all this other stuff. So they had a fairly good way of getting there, but it's still subjective at the end of the day. And, Ryan Cecil did make a great point that Pursuit Series does offer all a NCF barrel proof age dated bourbon. So shameless plug for the Pursuit Series and the guys at Bourbon Pursuit. But all right, so the final topic, and we'll wrap this up and maybe open it up for a little bit more, is does uncut, unfiltered mean anything? And this is another few buzzwords that I haven't really seen addressed. Maybe it has been somewhere along the way, but The quick answer is no. It doesn't mean anything. The TTB doesn't regulate it. The unfiltered thing kind of can, because I forget who it was a while back where they were saying it's unfiltered, and then they had to, I think it was Knob Creek, I don't remember. But generally they filter through mesh when they're dumping the barrels, because you don't want a huge thing of barrel char in your bottle of bourbon. But is that filtered? Well, yeah, they did filter it, but it's not chill filtering. So that was kind of how they were getting around that. But even like barrel proof and uncut, if it says uncut, I would assume they don't add water, but they could put uncut and they could add water. We talked about it on the last roundtable with, I think it was, who was it? It may have been Rare Breed, where Rare Breed is barrel proof, but every bottle has the same proof on it. So I don't know if they have the largest bottling vat ever and they're just bottling from there, or they kind of let the proof fluctuate based on barrels they're adding in. So no, it's interesting to see how a lot of the stuff that we kind of put weight in, the distilleries can kind of do their own thing. So, but anyways, that's probably going to wrap it up for now. Any other questions before I wrap up? I'm trying to keep it at around the 30-minute mark, because nobody wants to sit here and hear me talk. But I appreciate everyone coming out tonight and listening, watching, interacting. So hopefully we'll be doing this again next Wednesday night. And then I'm going to put this to YouTube. We may flip over to YouTube. I had a lot of people, they don't love Facebook, and they wanted to be a part of it. So we may flip over to YouTube live, but I'll still post it in the Bourbonr Facebook group. So if there's I did get one request for the hand, or the Parker's Heritage. So I'll try that really quick. Avoiding peer pressure was never really my thing. Somebody's like, "Oh, try one more sample." I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's a holiday tomorrow. Nobody's got to go to work. All right. So this one it's a 7-year-old bourbon. It's aged in orange Curacao barrels. So what's orange Curacao? It's like the Grand Marnier barrels, or something like that. It's a French orange liqueur or something. So this is it's the 12th edition of the Parker's Heritage Collection. If you're unfamiliar, once a year, Heaven Hill releases their Parker's Heritage Collection to honor their former master distiller, Parker Beam, who has since passed away of ALS. And it's usually a way to raise money for the ALS Foundation. So if nothing else, if the bourbon was absolutely horrendous, still go support that, because that is important. So I should get that out of the way before we get too serious about the bourbon and overly critical. All right, let's give this a shot. It's 110 proof. Yeah, and I've nosed this one before, and to me, it's like, I don't know if they finished it in orange Curacao barrels or just threw a bunch of those little like orange gummies that you used to eat as a kid into a bourbon barrel and just let them sit there for a year, because yeah, it's a huge orange note. It's actually a little better than the last time I visited it, but on the nose, it's just orange peel, orange zest, a little bit of spice, a little bit of sweetness. Yeah, I personally, and this is all personally, but I don't know. To me, it's out of balance. To me, it's like this huge hit of orange in this big like splash of proof with the alcohol at 110%, and some bourbon notes, a little bit of spice coming through, but it's mainly like mixing an orange soda with Um, I don't know, like I was going to say Everclear, but that's probably a little too aggressive. But just to me, it doesn't have balance. I would personally want a little more subtle, a little more orange hints of, let the bourbon kind of shine through some of the sweetness, and then some hints of the orange Curacao. But tasting it, it's just like this massive hit. Yeah, it's very. The finish is short and light and hot, and I don't know. I hate to say this because I really do like Heaven Hill products, but I feel like the last few that I've reviewed online or live, I haven't given a great review to. So, not to say that it's, I don't know. I want to say that this isn't my thing, but I do kind of like sweeter bourbons. I like finishes. I don't have like that traditional palate that only thinks bourbon should be made in Kentucky with only, new charred oak barrels. I'm okay with people playing with the finishes a little bit, but for this one, I'm not a big fan. So, all right, well, that'll probably wrap it up for tonight. So thank you all. Feel free to leave any comments you want, and I'll try to jump to them if there was something I missed. But really, again, thanks for coming out. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks.